We live in the most anxious age in human history, and yet paradoxically, the average person today is safer, richer, and more comfortable than any generation before us. So why are we still anxious? Maybe it's because our symbols of success, the things we use to define our worth, no longer come from within. They come from elsewhere, from screens, from systems, from people we'll never meet. When your sense of success is outsourced, your peace of mind goes with it. But how did this happen? How did humans, once grounded in community, purpose, and shared identity, learn to measure their lives by numbers, titles, and strangers' opinions? To understand anxiety, we have to trace its roots through history, from the ancient world to the digital age, and discover how we lost ownership of our self-concept and how to take it back. Hi, welcome to MindForge, where we explore the hidden forces shaping psychology, history, and human potential. Today, we're not just talking about anxiety as a mental health issue. We're talking about anxiety as a historical condition, the result of centuries of cultural evolution that slowly disconnected us from our internal compass. Let's start at the beginning. 1. The ancient mind. Success as belonging. Thousands of years ago, before civilization, currency, and social media, humans didn't worry about success. Success meant survival, that is, belonging to the tribe, hunting with skill, contributing to the group. Your worth wasn't something you achieved, it was something you embodied. It was relational, not individual. Anthropologists call this the communal self, where identity is defined by we, not me. If you lived in an ancient tribe, your actions mattered because they sustained others. You were part of a living organism, and that sense of belonging protected you from the kind of existential anxiety we feel today. There was no pressure to be unique, no social media feed comparing your hut to someone else's mansion, no invisible scoreboard tracking likes, followers, or productivity. In that world, success was local, it was human, it was real. 2. The age of civilization. Success as status. Then something changed. Around 10,000 years ago, humans began to settle, farm, and form hierarchies. Cities grew, kings emerged, and suddenly, for the first time, not everyone was equal. To survive, you didn't just need to belong, you needed to compete. From Egypt to Mesopotamia to Greece, symbols of success became externalized. Palaces, jewelry, titles, land, slaves. The psychological shift was profound. Your value was no longer what you gave to the community, it was what you possessed. And once success became visible, it became comparable. Historians call this the birth of status anxiety, because when your worth depends on what others can see, you start to live for their gaze. The philosopher Epicurus warned about this over 2,000 years ago. He said, "Nothing is enough for the man to whom enough is too little." Even then, people were chasing symbols that never satisfied. That's the beginning of our story, the moment humans started to outsource success to appearance. 3. The religious revolution. Success as virtue. Then came a different kind of outsourcing, not to wealth, but to moral authority. In the Middle Ages, especially under Christianity, the question of success shifted from "how rich am I?" to "how righteous am I?" The church became the new mirror of self-worth. Instead of comparing houses, people compared holiness. Your salvation, not your status, was the ultimate measure of success. But it was still judged by someone else, a priest, a book, a God whose approval you had to earn. Psychologically, the pattern was identical. The locus of validation remained external. People didn't just fear failure, they feared damnation. The philosopher Kierkegaard later called this the sickness unto death, the despair of not being yourself because you're defined by something beyond you. And it worked, for a while. Religion gave structure and meaning to life, even if it kept the self dependent on an outside moral system. 4. The Enlightenment. Success as reason and achievement. When science replaced religion as the dominant worldview, something else replaced faith as the measure of worth: achievement. The Enlightenment said, "You are not what the church says you are what you can prove." Knowledge became power. Productivity became virtue. The Industrial Revolution then turbocharged this mindset. Success was no longer about moral virtue, but economic output. From birth, you were trained to think of yourself as a worker, a producer, a cog in a machine. The factory didn't care about your soul, only your results. And once again, success became external, measured in hours, output, profit, grades, awards. We built entire institutions, schools, corporations, governments, on the idea that worth can be quantified. It was efficient, but it came with a cost, a deep, low-level anxiety that we now call imposter syndrome. Because when your value is based on performance, every mistake feels like an existential threat. And this logic has followed us right into the digital age. 5. The modern era. Success as image. Today we've perfected the outsourcing of self-worth. In the social media economy, success isn't even about achievement anymore. It's about visibility. It's not what you've built. It's how it looks online. Not who you are, but how you're perceived. Psychologists call this symbolic self-completion. When we use external symbols, designer clothes, job titles, luxury items, follower counts, to compensate for internal insecurity, it's no longer just status anxiety, it's identity anxiety. Because when your identity is performed for others, you can never fully rest. You're always one click away from comparison, one comment away from doubt. Our nervous systems weren't designed for this, to live in a constant social mirror that never turns off. And that's why anxiety feels like a pandemic of the mind, because our entire definition of success has been outsourced to collective perception. 6. The psychological trap. How outsourced success creates anxiety. Let's zoom in. When your sense of worth depends on external validation, 3 things happen psychologically. 1. You lose autonomy. You stop acting based on your values and start performing for approval. Every decision becomes a calculation. Will they like this? 2. You lose coherence. Your self-concept fragments. You become different versions of yourself for different audiences. Carl Jung called this the inflation of the persona. The mask becomes the self. 3. You lose presence. Because your mind is always in the future, chasing results, or in the past, replaying judgments. Anxiety then is not random. It's a symptom of disconnection from your own center. As the philosopher Alan Watts said, we suffer because we confuse the menu for the meal, the symbol for the reality. We've mistaken the symbols of success, money, titles, fame, for the actual experience of being alive. And until we reverse that, anxiety will remain the tax we pay for outsourcing meaning. 7. The turning point. Reclaiming the inner scoreboard. So how do we take it back? How do we deal with anxiety not just by managing symptoms, but by reclaiming sovereignty over our self-concept? It starts with one radical idea. Success must become internal again. The Stoic philosophers understood this long ago. Epictetus wrote, "There is only one way to happiness, to cease worrying about things beyond our control." He wasn't preaching apathy, he was teaching ownership. To the Stoics, success wasn't wealth or status, it was virtue, your ability to act with integrity, courage, and wisdom, no matter what happens outside. This is the psychological shift we need today, from measuring outcomes to measuring alignment. Here's how to start bringing that back into your daily life. 1. Define your internal metrics. Define what success means to you. Redefine what it means for you, for your finance, career, community, spirituality. For example, did I act in line with my principles today? Did I grow, even slightly, from yesterday? Did I treat others with respect, including myself? 2. Detach from outcome addiction. Focus on inputs, not results. Every time you check for likes, sales, or recognition, pause. Do things that are important and in alignment with your internal metrics. 3. Reclaim stillness. Anxiety thrives in noise. Create moments each day without performance. No phone, no validation, no audience. Just you, existing without needing to be anything. 4. Curate your symbols. Surround yourself with symbols that reflect who you want to be internally, not who you want to impress. Art, books, routines, things that mirror your true north. Because the truth is, we can't eliminate anxiety by changing the world. We can only reduce it by changing where we locate our identity. 9. The future, the new definition of success. Imagine a future where success isn't a competition, but a calibration, where your identity is rooted in growth, not comparison. We've spent thousands of years evolving outward, defining ourselves by what's visible. The next leap of evolution must be inward. The philosopher Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, said, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That space, that inner stillness, is where anxiety loses its grip. When your symbols of success come from elsewhere, your peace depends on things you can't control. But when your success comes from within, your peace becomes indestructible. So the next time anxiety rises, pause and understand, whose scoreboard am I playing on right now? Because maybe anxiety isn't always a problem to fix. Maybe it's a signal, a whisper from your deeper self telling you to come home, to stop outsourcing your worth, and start living from your own center. If you watch only, you won't be notified of our next masterpiece. So kindly subscribe to MindForge, and let's keep exploring the psychology, history, and philosophy of becoming whole again. Check out the next video showing somewhere on your screen. It is loaded with insight for your transformation. Take care.